Hello class, in this video we're going to be working with subtracting decimals using the standard algorithm. It is very similar to the adding decimals using the standard algorithm, but with minor changes. Before we get into that, I want you to pause the video and write down your complete heading, including your first and last name, the date, mathematics, your period number, and the title of this lesson, Subtracting Decimals Using the Standard Algorithm. Now that we have that in our notebooks, let's look at a problem. So here we have just an expression that's given to us, 389 and 24 hundredths minus 3 and 6 tenths. So very similar as if we were adding, we're going to take the first number here. Remember, order does matter with subtracting. I'm going to rewrite that number. 3, 8, 9, decimal 2, 4, which is pronounced 389 and 24 hundredths. Now I need to write the second digit and I have to align them. So the very first thing I do is I look for this decimal and I'm writing the decimal underneath. Now this 6 here is in the tenths. So therefore it goes underneath this 2 because that 2 is also the tenths. And then our 3 here is in the ones, so it has to go under the 9 because the 9 is also in the ones. And then I'm going to subtract and draw my line. Now subtracting though, for me anyway, I need to have things certainly organized. So for me with this gap right here, it can confuse me. So what I do is I add a 0 because by adding the digit 0 there, I'm not changing the value of the number. The value of the number stays exactly the same because I'm not adding anything. That's the point of the 0. Now that I have this and on this side, I can do the same thing over here if I wanted to. So I'm going to put a 0 under the 8 and a 0 under the 3. Do you need to put a 0 here? No. But if you are like me that needs that, please do so. And then all I need to do is subtract as if there was no decimals. And then when I get to the decimal, I just move it down. So 4 minus 0 is 4. Now I got 2 minus 6, but if I only have 2, I can't give you 6. So I need to reborrow. I need to take one of my ones. So if I take one away, I'm left with 8 and move it over here. So there are 10 tenths in 1 1. So this 2 now becomes a 12. 12 minus 6 is 6. I reached my decimal, so I'm just bringing that straight down. 8 minus 3 is 5. 8 minus 0 is 8. And 3 minus 0 is 3. Giving me my final answer of 385 and 64 hundredths. That's my final answer, so I need to circle it. Note how I first lined up by place value, and then I had to borrow, moving it over, and I rewrote the number on top so I don't get confused. If you just want to add the 1 here, you can, but I want to make sure you don't get confused. That's why I rewrote it as this way. I want you to pause this video now and write down the question, all of our work, and our solution in our notebooks. Now that we have this one down, let's look at another example. So here it says find the difference. Remember, if we see the word difference, we're talking about subtraction. So I have 1,461 and 389 thousandths minus 37 and 42 hundredths. So again, just like I did when I was doing addition of decimals, I'm going to take that first number. I'm going to rewrite it. Notice I'm not squishing my numbers. I'm making them neat and I'm spreading them out. Right? And I didn't put a comma again because when I'm working with the numbers, I'm afraid that I would mess up my commas with my decimals. If you need to put the comma, by all means you can. Okay? But that is just how I do it. Okay, and then I put the comma back at the end. Then I find my decimal in the second number, and I rewrite that down here. And I line up all of my digits by the correct place value. Now, don't worry about that. It looks a little awkward because like I did in my last one, I'm going to be adding in the zeros where there's blanks so that I know that I'm not going to mess them up. Since I only go through hundreds here and thousands here, I'm putting a 0 in the blank space. And the same thing for the 100 and the 1,000. Okay? Just so that I know that I'm accounting for each one. And then I subtract. 9 minus 0 is 9. 8 minus 2 is 6. 3 minus 4 will give me a negative number, but we're not working with negative numbers just yet. So we're going to borrow. We go 1 to the left. So I have 1, 1. So I'm going to take 1 away, so it's left with 0. And I'm going to add 10 pieces here because remember, there are 10 tenths in 1. So 10 plus 3 gives me 13, so this becomes a 13. Now I could do 13 minus 4 because that's going to give me 9. I get my decimals, so that brings down. Now I have 0 minus 7. Since if I have nothing, I can't take away 7. Again, I would get a negative number. And since we're not covering that, I need to borrow. So I go to 1 digit to the left. I'm taking 1 away. So that leaves 5. 110 equals 10 ones because there are 10 ones in 110. Like think of it, picture it. You need 10 singles to equal one $10 bill. So 10 plus 0 gives you 10. So I have 10 up here. 10 minus 7 gives me 3. 5 minus 3 gives me 2. 4 minus 0 is 4. 1 minus 0 is 1. Now that I have my calculations, I can rewrite my digits. Okay. Since this is my final answer, I'm going to input my comma so that I know my answer is 1,423 and 969 thousandths. Since this is my final answer, I'm circling it. Actually, I don't like that circle, so I'm going to undo that for a second. Okay. And I'm going to recircle it only because it kind of looked like that circle was going into the 1 and then you couldn't see it. Now I want you to pause this video, write down the question, all of our work, and our final answer in your notebooks. Now that we have that done, I want you to try some on your own. So I want you to show all of your work using the standard algorithm. I don't like that line. Kind of got a little messy. Need to use the standard algorithm. You can use other methods to help you check your work, but you must also use the standard algorithm. And your 2 questions is 236 and 43 hundredths minus 42 and 57 hundredths. Your second question is 2,381 and 14 hundredths minus 372 and 39 hundredths. So the first question is like our first problem here. Our second question here is like the second question we've gone over. Remember, the key is to line up your digits by place value. If they're not lined up by place value, you're not going to get the correct answer. So please make sure you line them up by place value. You may refer to any part of this video or the whole video entirely. You also may watch this video as many times as you need to complete all of this work.